Hey guys, it's Nadia from LiaDia Designs and I'm back with another video. Today's video is going to be a little bit different than the videos we've done before, which are more tutorials. I wanted to talk to you about colorants, and especially the ones that you would use when you're doing my stained glass technique, because there are options and each one of them gives you a different finish. And depending on, that look that you're going for, you may actually have a preference between these options. So I actually created 3 coasters here, and each of them is using a different type of colorant. So this way, again, I could properly show you the differences. 2 of them are red, one of them ended up being purple, but you'll still get the idea of what the differences are with the colorants. So let's get to it. So the first one I wanted to show you is this poppy coaster. So as you can see, this one here is clear on the outside, except for a little bit of glitter. You can clearly see my hand through it. But then the red and the rest of the poppy is semi-translucent. So it's not completely clear and it's not fully opaque. It's somewhere in the middle there. You can see that my hand is behind it, but you can't really see a lot of detail. Actually, if I take this bottle of gloss, we can actually see the same thing happening here, where we can't really read the label behind the red. Like, it just has that opacity to it, but still, somewhat see-through. It probably mimics the closest to real stained glass. And the product that I use for this is actually a stained glass paint. So this here is from Pebeo. This is their Vitrail line, and this is intended to get that stained glass finish. So you can, as this the color is crimson. And like I said, you can actually just open the bottle. I'm going to do it over here so that I'm not hopefully going to make a mess on my cloth. But I have a clear coaster here. So we're going to take it straight out of the bottle. Can you guys see what I'm doing? Let's move that over. Okay, so we're going to just dip our brush right in. And it is very liquidy, as you can see here. And then we're just going to paint straight onto the resin. No diluting needed in this case. You can just go, and you can thin it out like in terms of your brush strokes. And the great thing about this paint is it doesn't really leave any kind of streaks. As you can see, I just painted that on and there's no streaks. It just levels itself out. So there are some bubbles because I quickly did it, but you can just kind of fiddle with it until you get the bubbles out of there. Just kind of work with that a little bit. But yeah, so there you go. So you'll see that as it dries, it tends to want to level itself out. So you don't have to worry about streaks or things like that. And it does give that really nice stained glass look. So again, here. And as it dries, so right now it's wet, so it does have that shine. But once it dries, you can see it kind of gives a matte kind of finish. Even though it's sandwiched between resin on the bottom and on the top, it still gives kind of that flattened glass look once it's dry. So this is the Vitrail. Now, the one thing I did want to mention is I believe there are thinners if you want them for this line. I'd have to double check it, but I believe that there was a thinner for it. I didn't usually use the thinner for this, but if I wanted to thin it, there was a product that I was using, and it was something that I actually commonly used in the beginning part when I first started creating this technique, and it's this product here. It's the Pebeo Gedeo, I know I'm saying that wrong, Gloss+Varnish. So this is Pebeo's it's like a thicker, it's almost, the lady at the store had told me years ago that it's kind of between a regular gloss varnish and resin, like it's somewhere in between there. So I believe, if I remember correctly, that she had said if you compare it to something like this DuraClear that I have been using recently, this is much, in terms of, it's almost as if you did, I can't remember, she said 8 or 16 layers, but it's almost as if you did 8 or 16 layers of this would give you the same type of thickness of kind of that varnish over it, over the piece that you're painting it on. And it just gives you, it is actually a nicer finish overall. It just kind of lays itself flat, self-leveling, and it's a really nice type of varnish. Now, something did happen last year that actually caused me to change from this product to this product, and I did want to talk to you guys about that. So the problem what happened last year was that because this product, I'm assuming this is the reason why, because this product is from France, there were distribution issues during COVID, and I couldn't find it. Normally, I find this at most of my regular art stores, even. I believe Amazon was carrying it for a while. Like it was somewhat readily available before the pandemic, but then last year it just suddenly disappeared. I couldn't find it anywhere. So what happened was is I just scoured the internet and I did find just kind of a random art store in my province that was selling them. And I ended up buying like 8 bottles just because I was using it so much and I really needed it. And I just wanted to make sure I had stock because I didn't know if they ran out, if I was going to be able to find it again. So I did buy 8 bottles. Now, when I received it, I did notice, and I don't know if you can see it well here on camera, but if you can see, it's the liquid inside is actually quite yellow. I don't know if you can tell that on camera very well, but it's quite yellow. And this product, this is the price. That's not what I paid, but that's what they had marked on the bottles. So the liquid is supposed to be like 100% crystal clear, like it's like water. You're not supposed to have any yellowing in it because, again, this acts, I'm not sure what the active ingredient in it, but it does act similar to resin where it does start to yellow over time if it's just kind of sitting in the sun or it's exposed to UV light or anything like that. So I didn't know that before COVID hit. So when I received these bottles, they were all yellow like this. And I thought, oh, that's weird. Maybe, maybe it'll be fine just because, that it's, who knows, maybe it just got discolored slightly, but when you actually use it, it'll be fine. So I want to show you what actually happened. So this coaster here is one that I created with one of these bottles. This is not this particular bottle because I haven't opened this one, but with one of these bottles. And as you can see, the whole design has turned quite yellow, especially in this glitter area here. This was clear. Like this was actually just the same way about how, this area here is clear with glitter in it. This area was the same. It was just clear. All the rest of it had some slight pigments in it. Even this fish was supposed to be white, but it's actually turned quite yellow as well. And I'm not kidding when I tell you that this happened or started to happen within a week of me creating it. Like with using this, it just started to yellow so quickly. So, and that's what happened. And I was just completely heartbroken. And I messaged the company, the art store that sold it to me, and I showed them the pictures. And thankfully, they refunded me, but they didn't have any more stock. So I needed to find an alternative. And so this was the lesson learned from using this product. So if you do get this product, definitely make sure that when you're getting it, that it's 100% clear, like no yellowing at all. It's 100% clear. Once you do that and you get it like sandwiched in your resin, it's not going to have that issue where it's going to yellow super fast. I mean, resin does yellow in time, and depending on the resin that you're using, it will yellow over time, but definitely not within a week the way that this happened. So just a word of caution if you decide to use this product. If you do receive it, I mean, obviously, if you're going to be pigmenting this gloss, heavily with color, then maybe it's not going to be as much of an issue. Or if you are pigmenting it with, let's say, reds or oranges, you're probably not going to notice, as you can see here, the orange on the fish looks perfectly fine. You wouldn't really know if there was a major difference in that color. So just keep that in mind if you're going to be using this type of varnish or any type that's more of a kind of resin style varnish, that if it starts to yellow, definitely be careful with that. So, okay, so let's move on to the second option. Okay, so for the second option, I actually wanted to show you this one. Now, my orchid here, as you can see, has a very pearlescent look to it, and that's because this was made of mica powder. So the colorant being used was the way I've shown you in a lot of my other videos, where I actually mixed mica powder with, again, the gloss varnish. And so this one, as you can see, It is, again, somewhat see-through, similar in opacity to this one, maybe a little bit more opaque, but again, that depends on how you mix it. You can mix it thinner, and but what it does give you is it gives you that really pretty pearlescent shine to it that you don't get with the stained glass. The stained glass is beautiful in its own way, but it doesn't have any type of pearlescent look to it. So that is the difference here. And again, for those of you who may not have seen my previous videos, the way that we do that, and I'm going to put a little bit of gloss varnish here just to show you. And I just picked up this one. This is an Eye Candy Baku Red. And this is a bit more of a pink, but it'll do for what we need. I'm just going to grab a little bit more. So we'll mix that. And we'll keep it, again, you can, the great thing with using the mica powder is you can control the opacity. So if you want it to be super thin, you can, and if you want it to be more opaque, you can do that as well. So you have those options. Now, again, I did have a follower talk to me earlier today about the gloss varnish, and she was concerned that the varnish, when you pour it out, is actually white. It's not clear. And that is true. So it is white in the bottle, but then once it dries, and even here you can see that it does look a little bit cloudy, like the true color of the pigment isn't quite showing here because it's mixed with the gloss varnish, which is kind of lightening it. So, but once it dries, you can see, obviously the colors are different, but as it dries, you can see that it does dry clear. So the clear varnish, that same DuraClear, was used on these sections as well, the whole piece, but these sections as well. And you can see that it's perfectly clear, right? So it does dry clear. So we are going to take this and we'll just put that next to. And again, I didn't add a lot of color here, but you can add more or less depending on the look that you're going for. But again, you can see the pearlescent tone of the effect of the mica compared to the stained glass paint. So we do have that. And yeah, so anyway, so that one there gives you that option. And in here, obviously I went in and I blended the colors, and the mica powder will give you a little bit more flexibility with that because the colors will tend to hold their own. They're not going to, they will blend slightly, but not blend thoroughly to become like one color. So my blues in here didn't completely blend in with the purple, so I could get the details that I wanted with the mica powder. Sometimes if you would try to do the same thing with the glass paint, it's like I was telling you before, it does self-level. So those colors would just kind of blend together, and it would just, let's say I use like an, maybe a red in the middle, on this end, and maybe an orange or a yellow on this end. It would actually create a pretty nice gradient from the red to the yellow, and you wouldn't see, the brushstroke lines that you're seeing here. So that's the one main difference. Now, again, I actually really like the mica powder look because, again, you guys know how much I like my shine and my glitter. So this is something that I really like for the finish. But again, we can see the beauty of the stained glass paint here as well. So we can move on to our last option. Okay, so for our last option, we have our hibiscus flower here. Now, out of all three options, this is the most translucent one. So as you can see my hand, my rings, and let's even at the bottle, we can read right through it, right? So this is the most translucent option, which again is beautiful. And as you can see, shows the colors straight through. So this option here, I actually used pigment dyes, and this one particular I used was from Let's Resin, and it's their resin dye in ruby red. So what I did with this one is, again, I actually mixed this with the gloss varnish just to kind of get kind of that smooth flow. I didn't actually try it straight out of the bottle, but maybe we should do that just to kind of see if, I mean, it'll obviously be much more concentrated. I'm just going to do a drop. Ooh, oh no, that was a big drop. On there, I'm going to wipe that because I know that's going to leak onto my cloth. So, okay, so this is the 100%. So this is straight out of the bottle, which you could definitely do if you wanted to. And it's going to give you, it seems, a very similar look to the stained glass. Paint that's there. All right. So again, this one is actually going to dry more clear than this one. This one, as I was telling you before, it will start to dry and get a little bit more opaque. It actually might actually becoming a little bit more opaque because I did actually also use that varnish in there. So, Okay, I'm back. I actually wanted to check something because looking at this now, I wasn't sure, but something, so I wanted to test it. So again, looking at this one was semi-opaque or semi-translucent, whatever the wording is. But now when I'm looking at this and I look at the dye and I look at the pure paint right out of the bottle, they look very similar. Like you can actually see through them pretty much in the same amount. So then I started wondering, well, why is it cloudy? Because it wasn't, or sorry, it's not here. So I'm assuming it's because I mixed it with this gloss varnish here, that's what happened. So it just kind of changed the composition a bit. So what I did is I'm doing a test where I did put a little bit of that Pebeo varnish in here and a little bit of the glass paint. So I'm going to put this, and I'll have to probably verify it after it dries. I probably should have added more pigment because this is not gonna show as clear. Sorry, I'm gonna do that a little bit more. Let's add a little more. I'm definitely going to make this not look like I have created a crime or something, but getting red everywhere. All right, so again, I put a little bit of the gloss varnish from Pebeo here, and I'm going to get a little bit of this glass paint in here, and again, I'll mix that up. So as you can see, it blends nicely with the gloss, that Pebeo varnish. Actually, maybe I'll show you guys the difference because I did just test it here as well. So this is what it looks like when the glass paint, let's get a bit more, is mixed with the DuraClear, which is a water-based paint. So this is so you can see it's not wanting to blend, it's just kind of staying not. And then you can actually also, I don't know if you guys can see me, I'm too close, that there's chunks, right? Like it's just not wanting to blend. And I don't know if you can see that reflection. It's like literally oil and water, like how it's trying to do it. And it's just kind of separating. So that's why I'm not recommending using the glass paint from Pebeo with the DuraClear gloss varnish. So there's that. And I'm sure, like I said, I don't know exactly what the base of the Vitrail paint is or what the base of the geode, the Pebeo varnish is, but for whatever it is, they like each other. And it's also the same brand. So there's probably a lot of similar elements in there, knowing that people might actually mix them. So again, this is the Pebeo gloss varnish with the Pebeo glass paint, and let's just thicken that and add more to this so it just has similar opacity to the straight out of the bottle. Okay, so now that we've covered all that, let me just quickly summarize because I know I went over a lot there. So for this coaster here with the poppy, we mixed our vitriol, which is now got red all dripped all over it. The vitriol with the Pebeo uh, gloss plus varnish. So it's these two products here together that mix to create that to create this opaque look. Now, again, if you wanted to use it straight out of the bottle, you're going to end up with this one here, which is actually much more clear. So there is your options. Again, this one's going to continue drying. So I will leave this to dry and we'll just do a quick comparison at the end of the video just to verify that. But you can already see the difference. Like you can see my logo very clear through this one, and it's kind of not as clear through that one. So you can see the difference the gloss varnish for that piece makes. And then for this one here, we used the mica powder, which for the example is this one. So again, if we use my logo card, can't really see through it. As it dries, it just becomes more and more opaque, and but it does give a really nice shimmer. It's just is not as see-through. So for that one, we used the Baku Red mica powder and the DuraClear varnish. So that was this one over here. And then for this one, I used the pigment dye. So it was a Let's resin dye. And again, with the DuraClear gloss varnish, you could use this straight out of the bottle as well. But again, it's going to be quite intense in color. And these bottles are quite small. So I don't know if you necessarily want to use it without mixing it into something. Also, I'm not really sure how quickly it's going to dry. I have never actually used the dye on its own. I've always mixed it into resin or I've mixed it into the varnish. So I'll check that as well as I'm letting this dry, how long this is taking to dry compared to everything else. Because you can see here, the the mica powder is almost dry already. And I know this was done afterwards, but this was the pigment dye and it's still quite fluid. You can just kind of still see it swirling around. So it may need to be mixed with some varnish for it to kind of set. So there is that. And then this one here is when I mixed it with the gloss varnish, which is what we did for the flower. All right, so I'll be back once this test coaster dries and we'll wrap up the results. Okay, I'm back. I was completely impatient in terms of waiting for these inks and colorants to dry. So I did take my heat gun to it. It did a little bit of damage, so I don't recommend taking your heat gun to it. Just let it dry, air dry naturally. But there are conclusions here. So, so for our full 100% vitriol glass paint, it dried perfectly fine. And again, we'll use my logo. It dried perfectly fine. And it's beautiful. Like if you really like that intense red color, use it, straight out of the bottle. Don't mix it with anything. And it's going to be beautiful. So you can do that. This one here, again, sorry, with the heat gun, it kind of got a little bit messed up. But you can see with the logo underneath that it is, semi-translucent. So, which is very similar to what that coaster was doing. So the gloss varnish for that, it did affect the translucency of the glass paint. So just know that if you're looking for that kind of a fogged glass look, or frosted, I guess, frosted glass look, you could just mix it with some of that gloss varnish and it'll give you that look. If you want it super clear, you can use it straight out of the bottom. Again, I hit it a little bit hard with the heat gun on the mica powder here, but we already knew that that one was going to dry semi, translucent. Actually, it's mostly opaque, just a little bit see-through, and just the gloss varnish just bubbled up here because I just hit it with a bit too much heat. And it does have that pearlescent shine to it. The dye did not dry at all. So we definitely can't use it straight out of the bottle. We need to mix it with varnish. So as you can see here, this one is mixed with the varnish. It's not 100% dry because I just figure I was heating this piece too much and it was causing everything else to get damaged. So it's a little bit wet, but it's as you can see, it's very clear. Even when you mix it with the varnish, it's very translucent. So can't use it. I'll just show you that it's still 100% wet. You know, everything else was, you know, pretty much dried, but this one did not dry at all. So it definitely needs to be mixed. And if you wanted to do this with resin, because I know a lot of people have asked me why do I use the gloss varnish and why don't I actually just use resin? So the reason that I don't use resin when I'm filling in my stained glass designs is because my resin cures super fast. Like even my thinner resin, it starts to cure within about 30 minutes. And you know, these pieces, the painting process takes longer than that or close to that. So I just don't want my resin to start thickening and it just kind of changes its texture. It just, you know, it'll just give me too much stress. So I'd rather have as much time as I need, and the gloss varnish gives me that. But if you feel that you want to use resin for this, and your resin, let's say you have a slow curing resin, maybe it, you know, you have a working time of an hour and a half, whatever, and you want to do that, for sure, 100%, you can do that. I believe the results will be similar. The only one I don't know for sure is this, the stained glass, because the stained glass I don't believe is meant to mix with resin, but it did again mix well. Well, for the most part, it mixed well with this resin type of gloss varnish, so it's possible it could mix with resin as well. Again, I don't know. I think if you're going to go for this look, you might as well just go for the resin dye, just because it, you know, it's made for resin, so you're going to get the pretty much the same look. So if you want to just be able to paint straight out of the bottle onto the coasters, you can definitely just use this. But if you want to use resin to, you know, to color in the sections here, then use the dye for, you know, mix that in with the resin, and then you can fill in your areas with that, and you'll get pretty much the exact same look there for those two. The mica powder, obviously we know that we can mix that with resin, that's not an issue. And again, with this is again the same thing. If you mix it with resin, just you wouldn't mix as much, and then you would get that more translucent look here. So yes, so anyway, so hopefully that is a lot of information that will help you guys decide how you want to color your, you know, however you want to color your stained glass, and depending on the kind of look that you want to go for. I didn't try acrylic paints and I didn't try alcohol inks because I don't really use either of those when I am coloring my stained glass. Acrylic paint, in my opinion, is going to be somewhat similar to the mica powder, but would likely not obviously have a lot of that pearlescent finish unless you're using a pearlescent type of paint. You can obviously still mix that with gloss varnish, and that shouldn't be an issue to kind of thin it out. So if you want to try that, that's definitely an option. So I would assume that is how the acrylic paints would work. Actually, I have some acrylic paint here if you guys want me to try it. Okay, so let's try it. Since we're talking about it, let's try. I have a couple here. So this is Deco Arts metallic acrylic paint. Let me just grab a cup. Sorry guys, this video turned out to be a lot longer. I thought this was going to be a 5-minute video and it's totally turning into, I don't even know what we're at, probably like 20 minutes, 25 minutes, I have no idea. Okay, so we put a bit of the gloss varnish down, and we're going to just put a little bit. I'm going to put like literally a drop, because we'll put it onto the side because I know it's going to it's not going to be very translucent if I put a lot of it. So let's just do a little bit. And as you can see, that was a drop, and I just took like the smallest piece from that and look how much it's already colored this gloss varnish. So I'm just going to use that because think that's probably what we need. Maybe just use a tiny bit more. Okay, let's just move this out of the way. Okay, so again, this is a pearlescent acrylic, so I do think it's going to look very, very similar to our micas. So let's just do that. Okay, so that is, so that's acrylic paint. And again, lost my card. So again, similar. Once it dries, it's not going to be very see-through. So that's going to give you a very similar effect. And again, I don't really use alcohol ink, but if you guys wanted to try that, one of my issues with alcohol ink, at least from what I've heard and a little bit of experience I've had from it, is that alcohol ink, some brands and some colors tend to fade very quickly. And I want a color that's reliable, that if I make the piece to look like this, that it's going to continue looking like this, you know, 6 months from now. So this way I don't have to worry about, you know, if it's the yellows or the blues or whichever colors tend to fade, that they're going to be suddenly gone. Because I have heard some people say that they did color their resin with alcohol inks, and then suddenly a couple months later, the piece looks completely different because a lot of the color just completely faded out. So I don't use alcohol inks for that reason. But if you have success with alcohol ink, you can definitely do something like this. I would assume alcohol ink is going to give you a very similar finish to the dye, just because alcohol ink is more transparent of a pigment. So I would assume it's going to give you something more similar to this. But again, if you guys want to test it, do that and let me know the results. But in any case, I'm going to get going just because I've taken up so much of your time. So I hope you guys liked this video, and I hope that you found it helpful and that it's going to help guide you to where you want to invest your money on supplies, because I know that, you know, resin is a very expensive hobby or business. Like the supplies and everything else you need to use for it does get very expensive. And I know in a lot of my videos, I introduce a lot of new products that a lot of you guys haven't seen before or used before, and they're not all of them are inexpensive. So I want to give you guys options and know that you can still succeed in getting a beautiful finished piece without having to buy all the specialty products that I use. Just know that I am a lifetime artist. I've been collecting these supplies all of my life. I have whole studio full of supplies of all different kinds of things that I've just collected over the years and I've just wanted to try, and I have them at my disposal here. So it's not that I've always gone out and purchased these products right now for these videos. So a lot of times I've had them in my storage for years, and I'm just kind of pulling them out and saying, hey, let's try it and see how this works with resin. So that's the reason why, you know, I actually like experimenting, and I like showing you guys different things that maybe you haven't thought of with resin. So that's the reason why I really want to introduce you guys to different products. But just know it's not 100% necessary all the time to be able to need to do that. And I am also experimenting with other options for these outliners on the pieces as well. That will be another video coming up soon, because I know there's been a lot of people saying they're having difficulty finding the outliners, or they just find them too pricey in their areas, which I completely understand. So I'm actually currently in process of testing some options for that as well. So that'll be another video coming out soon. If you guys like this video, if you found it helpful, please let me know in the comments. If there's anything else you want me to test or try, then let me know and I'll see if I can do that for you as well. If you like this type of video where I just kind of ramble on for 30 minutes about, you know, just products and tips and tricks and things that I kind of have gained knowledge about over the years, let me know and what type of things you want me to talk about, because I am willing to do that if you guys like this style of video. I will of course still be doing my regular tutorials, but I can mix in these videos once in a while too. So anyway, thanks guys so much. Take care, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done it already, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks. Take care. Bye.